right now, I think we're seeing the greatest destruction of human capital and potential in human history outside of the two world wars, because this is happening on a vast scale. Young people have basically given up all their attention to a few companies.
Hello and welcome to the AMA Update video and podcast. Today we have a special AMA Update with Jonathan Haidt, best-selling author and Thomas Cooley Professor of Ethical Leadership at the NYU Stern School of Business in New York. He's here today to discuss his newest book, The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. He'll also talk about the important role that physicians and the medical community can play in addressing and even reversing this epidemic. I'm Todd Unger, AMA's Chief Experience Officer in Chicago. Professor Haidt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, what a pleasure. It's a great honor, and I'm just thrilled to be able to talk to the medical community. What we're going through is well, we need your help. We need doctors on board advising parents about what's going on.
Well, your book really hit home with me. As the father of two Gen Z daughters, I could really relate to it on a personal level, as I'm sure so many people in our audience will as well. Professor Haidt, we've talked a lot on the AMA Update about the dramatic increase in depression, anxiety, and suicide among young people, but it's really been with a pandemic as a backdrop. But in your book, The Anxious Generation, you identify something else that was happening before the pandemic, and you call it the Great Rewiring of Childhood. Talk to us about that.
Sure. So in 2019, when I really started this project, it was clear something terrible was happening. This was pre-COVID. My previous book was called The Coddling of the American Mind, and it was about how we've been overprotecting our kids for a long time. They don't become anti-fragile, they become fragile. They don't develop independence. They're still a bit dependent when they arrived at universities. So I was already looking at how over-supervision, the loss of play, was leading to an increase in depression, anxiety. But there was something else going on. As I gathered all the data I could, I gathered all the studies, I gathered all the graphs of mental health trends, something amazing came out of it. Jean Twenge, another social psychologist, had already shown these sort of hockey stick-shaped curves. If you graph out levels of anxiety, depression, especially anything, internalizing disorders, anxiety, depression, what you find is that rates for teenagers were actually very stable from the late 90s all the way through 2010 or 2011. There's no sign of a problem. And all of a sudden in 2012, someone turns on a light switch and the numbers go shooting up. The rates, especially for girls, the rates anywhere from 50 to 100% increases, depending on what measures you're using. So that was already known from Jean Twenge's work. Around 2017, she came out with that. But what I began to discover is that the same thing was happening in the UK, Canada, Australia. It's happening in Scandinavia, and it all points to something around 2012, plus or minus a couple of years. Now, you never see that. I mean, that would seem to indicate either somebody released a chemical, in the air in that year that somehow interfered with child development, or something happened that changed childhood around the world. And so that's where I really began focusing on what were their digital habits? How was childhood changing? And when you put it all together, what you see is the early internet in the 90s was marvelous, wonderful, amazing. Millennials grew up using it. Their mental health was fine. But it really changed between 2010 and 2015. This is the Great Rewiring. In 2010, hardly anyone had a smartphone. No, teenagers, it was just coming in, but they all had flip phones mostly. There was no Instagram. There was no front-facing camera. Most people didn't have high-speed internet. So you could not spend 10 hours a day on your flip phone. You'd use it, teens would use it to connect, and that's good. They can contact their friends, they meet up, that's great. That's 2010. 2015, everything's different. Now, almost the great majority have a smartphone, not a flip phone. They have high-speed internet with unlimited data plans. They have a front-facing camera. The girls especially are all on Instagram. And now they're not getting together anymore. The numbers that we now have are about 8 to 10 hours a day is what they spend on screens just for entertainment. We're not talking school or schoolwork. And half of all of our teenagers say that they are online almost all the time, which means they're not spending time with other kids. They're not putting their arm around other kids. They're not laughing with other kids. They're doing this all day long. And so I tried to put all that together in the book to convey this was not a gradual thing. Something was transformed around 2012, and it's hitting us all over the world. teens, especially girls, are checking into psychiatric emergency wards, and we've got to roll this back.
Now, I think a lot of people kind of forget that quick rollout of all those technologies that you just talked about and what the kind of cumulative impact has been. And you mentioned kind of some of the harms that have been caused by that combination there. Talk to us a little bit about the 4 ways that you outline in the book that have translated into really affecting this generation.
Yeah, so I made a long list of all the harms that I could find, all the studies that pointed to various harms. And I realized some are particular to girls, some are particular to boys, but there are 4 that are hitting everyone. Once you move from a play-based childhood based in the real world with experience to a phone-based childhood where almost everything is just looking at your screen, 4 big things happen to everyone, boys and girls. So the first is sleep deprivation. It's that simple. I mean, we all know when kids, if kids are missing, if you take half an hour of sleep a night away from kids, there's a long-term effect of that. And a lot of kids, the heavy users, we got to remember, about 5 to 12% of girls have what's called problematic use of social media. 5 to 12%, something like that, of boys have problematic use of video games. And I can't get a clear number for porn. It's probably in the same ballpark. So even if most kids aren't being harmed, 5 to 12% is a lot to have their lives taken over by this. So for the heavy users, it interferes with sleep. Actually, for a lot of them, it just interferes with sleep. That's one. And that's just so basic. We've got to stop that. So, you can definitely advise your patients, no screens in the bedroom. When you and I were kids, most families had a rule. You can't have a television in a kid's bedroom. That would be crazy. But now they have everything in their bedroom. Sleep deprivation. The other is possibly the most important of all in terms of widespread effects, and that's social deprivation. It used to be that teenagers spent a lot of time with their friends. And there's the American Time Use Survey. We can chart out how much time people spend with their friends or eating or sleeping. We've got really good data on that in the United States. And what you see is that teenagers used to spend 2 hours a day with their friends on average, while older people spent like 45 minutes because, we're married, we're busy. Well, guess what happens? As soon as you get the great rewiring, as soon as they get smartphones and social media, time with friends plummets before COVID. In fact, when COVID comes in and you got the lockdowns, you barely see any acceleration of the decline because Gen Z was social distancing since 2012. They began social distancing as soon as they got their smartphones. And we all know, and the Surgeon General has been so eloquent on this, loneliness is a killer. Loneliness, is more deadly than cigarettes in some studies. So our kids are so lonely. Gen Z is the most connected generation in history, which means they're not spending time with other human beings. They are so lonely. The third harm is attention fragmentation. And that is, imagine if you never went 4 minutes without interruption. Imagine what life would be like. It's hard to imagine. Although we older people, we're getting there with group texts and texts coming in. But imagine if from the time you were 9, when you got your first smartphone, and you start going on social media and your friends and strangers are messaging you and you have to respond. So the inability to pay attention is really devastating for cognitive development and for academics. School achievement is declining around the world, not since COVID, since 2012. So we're getting sicker and stupider, frankly. This is true across the developed world. So attention fragmentation is the third harm. And the fourth harm is addiction, which I already mentioned. There's a debate, is it truly addiction? Well, if gambling is an addiction, gambling is a behavioral addiction. And if you're willing to say that some people have compulsive gambling, they ruin their fortunes, they ruin their family, they can't stop. Well, guess what? The social media was literally designed to copy slot machines. The thing where you pull down and it kind of bounces up, that was literally taken from slot machines as a design feature. So these things are designed to be addictive. They've been under refinement in the addiction labs of Meta and other companies. They're very good at what they do. And, 5 to 50% of our kids are, I think, truly addicted in ways that are severely damaging their development.
So what you've outlined in the book is this combination of, we'll call it overprotection in the real world and underprotection in the online world. You said maybe no TV in the bedroom, but they still have access to everything. Talk to us a little bit about the dangerousness of that combination.
Yeah. So all mammals play, and they play a lot. And human children play a lot. And humans are really playful all the way up through their teen years, even in their 20s. Young people are very playful. And it's not a luxury. It's like you have to play to wire up the brain. And kids should be out playing in the real world. The healthiest kind of play, research seems to show, is unsupervised free play, mixed age groups. You have to play different roles. You have to work out the conflicts. You learn to work things out. That's the healthiest for social and physical development. And when everything moves onto the online platforms, now there's no movement, just one finger. We're starting to get neck problems. Myopia is surging around the world because young people, you're supposed to be out. They're supposed to get sunlight. They're supposed to have long visions, through the forest, across a field. But there's much less time outdoors, much less time in nature, much less sunlight getting into their eyes and on their skin. And so it's affecting development in a lot of ways. What I came to see in writing the book, I thought it was going to originally be a book about social media harming girls, because that's where the evidence is clearest. But as I tried to tell the story and as I tried to figure out the parallel story for boys, I realized it's not just girls on social media, boys on video games and porn. It's normal, healthy human childhood, which we evolved for and which we've had more or less for 50 million years, as long as however far back mammals go. It's that ending in a very short period of time. And part of why it ended is that in the 1990s, Americans, began in the 80s, we freaked out about child abduction. It's extremely rare, but we saw more stories about it on the news. Many people remember the milk carts, the pictures on milk cartons of missing kids. So we freaked out about child abduction. We stopped letting our kids out. We didn't trust our neighbors anymore. And this was really in the 90s when this really happens. But guess what? Oh, we have a PC and we have a modem, and here, kid, you can go explore the virtual world. And at first it was marvelous. The early internet was amazing. And again, millennials loved it and they came out fine. And so this is why we were fooled. Most of us were techno-optimists. We thought the internet is amazing. I still think that. I love the internet. The internet's amazing. It's good for kids, we thought. Well, maybe the early internet was. But now, after time, everything gets corrupted. Sexual predators, extortion rings, it's the idea that our children are in communication with strangers around the world, that we have no idea, we can't monitor it even, is completely insane. So my point is, we have vastly overprotected our kids in the real world where they need a lot more experience. We need to send them out. And we vastly underprotected them in the virtual world, which has zero safeguards, zero. The government has said companies are not responsible for age verification, and you can't sue them. If they show your daughter a lot of suicide stuff, what can we say? Section 230, they can show whatever they want. So again, we're in a completely unbelievable situation regarding the threats to our children from the online world, when they'd be much safer if we sent them out to play unsupervised.
So you have this huge disruption to the play-based childhood being substituted through this phone-based childhood. Mm-hmm. And it's clear from the statistics that you point out in the book that there has been a lot of damage. What can we do to help the young people who have been affected? And is that a different set of steps than to prevent this from those going forward?
Yeah. So, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And for parents whose kids are still in elementary school, it's so easy what to do. You just have to delay entry. Don't get into the game of, well, we gave him a phone, but we put on these controls, and he got around the controls. So delay is the only way. Just delay when they get on delay when they get a smartphone, delay that till high school. No kid before high school should have a smartphone, give them a flip phone. And delay when they get on social media, at least to 16. So it's easy for the younger kids. Now, what do we do for the older Gen Z? My kids are 14 and 18. What do we do for the kids who've had phones and been on social media? What I'm finding, because I teach a course at NYU at Stern, in the business school, I teach a course called Flourishing. And it's 35 undergraduate students. They're mostly sophomores, about 19 years old. And most of them have real problems with their phone. One student in my class was using just TikTok, was 6 hours a day, just TikTok. Imagine 6 hours a day of 15-second videos. There's no time for anything else. And it's just the things it does to the, the reinforcement system, the dopamine neurons, so a lot of them are having trouble. And it's very hard to fix this by yourself. Like, what are you going to do? Say, I'm going to get off social media and then I'm alone. But if you do it in a small group, then it's actually much easier. And so what I found from teaching this course for a number of years now is the most essential first step is young people, they have to regain their attention. Most of them have given away all of their attention. They never have a moment to think, to reflect, to daydream, because it's just they have to be consuming content all day long. Again, half of all teens say they're online almost constantly, almost every minute. iPhones are waterproof now. I'm told that some kids take it into the shower, so you can keep swiping while you're in the shower. Imagine never having a moment to think. So there's no hope if that's the way your life is. You're not going to amount to much, and you're at much higher risk for anxiety and just social dysfunction. So that's the first thing, as I say, let's turn off almost all your notifications. I get them to see that their attention is the most precious resource they have, and they can't get more of it. So, who are you going to give it away to? You're going to give it away to every company that pings you 20 times a day. So regain control of your attention. To get social media off of your phone, if you need it on your computer, for starters, do that. And eventually, some of them get off entirely. Once they regain 3 to 5 hours a day of time, now there's room to do things like more exercise, or going out with friends more, or practicing their social skills. A lot of them are very shy. A funny thing about Gen Z is that a lot of them are very afraid to make a phone call because that's live, that's awkward. They're used to texting, which is asynchronous. Mm-hmm. So they know that they need to practice their skills. So anyway, my point is, if you went through puberty with a phone-based childhood, it probably changed your brain. That's what sensitive periods are. Puberty is massive, rapid brain rewiring. Probably change your brain. But if you work on it in your early 20s, your brain is still plastic enough that I think we get amazing results in the class. So there definitely is hope. But if you don't do anything, if you just continue on spending 5 hours a day on social media, I think you're going to be less than you would have been. And I think we're seeing right now, the greatest destruction of human capital and potential in human history outside of the 2 world wars, because this is happening on a vast scale. Young people have basically given up all their attention to a few companies, Meta and TikTok, and then Google and YouTube. They largely own almost all young people. I don't know about almost all, but more than half of their conscious attention, something like that, something in that ballpark. So that has to change.
Professor Haidt, not surprisingly, physicians are seeing the impact of this mental health epidemic, and with a shortage of specialists, a lot of pediatricians and primary care physicians have had to deal with increasingly complex mental health issues. Mm-hmm. How can physicians better screen for or address the negative impacts of social media during routine visits? It's not like there's a lot of time in these visits. What advice do you have for them?
Well, first, the biggest impact you could have, again, prevention is so much more powerful here than therapy or cure. The biggest impact you could have is to speak up. If the AMA, the American Association of Pediatrics, speak up about this, do your internal research. I'll help you. I'll point you to the research. Make a statement that kids just should not be doing this. They should not be on social media. They should not be having a phone-based childhood. So making public statements. If doctors get on board here, as the Surgeon General has been fantastic here. If the AMA and individual doctors would back him up and say, look, what we're seeing tells us the Surgeon General is right. That's the most important thing for the country. Now, as for your individual practices, I think it's very important to talk to the parents about the habit, talk to the parents and the kids, young people, about their digital habits. Addicts will lie. So if a boy has a porn addiction, he's not going to tell you. Now, the parents might not know, but if a boy has a video game addiction, the parents will know. They'll know that he's spending 5-6 hours a day on video games. That has to stop. There's no way to go through adolescence 5 hours a day of video games. And I shouldn't say no way, but there are going to be effects, and they're going to be limiting or reducing. So first you have to get a handle on their digital consumption and digital addictions, or at least problematic use. I wouldn't even focus so much on content. What are you watching is important, but I would especially look for what's taking up your time. If there's anything that is taking up 3-4 hours a day, like YouTube videos or anything else, even if they're nice videos, That's a real problem. Conversely, what's their activity level? Are they playing sports? Are they having good time in person with their friends? So you want to look, you want to really judge to what extent does this kid have a play-based childhood versus a phone-based childhood? And if it's phone-based, I would urge you to talk with the parents and the kid and to try to cultivate healthier habits and to, as much as possible, delay the phone-based childhood. Give the brain a chance to wire up. Early puberty is so sensitive, so delicate, so important. We can't give early puberty to random strangers on TikTok.
Now, we've talked a lot about the harms of social media, potentially for young people, but what about the positive side of this? Do you have any kind of guidance to have a more positive relationship with social media?
Yeah, I keep hearing about the benefits, but no one can really tell me what they are. That is, they say, oh, well, it makes them feel more connected. Well, yes, it does that by taking all of their attention and decimating their in-person contact. So the more connected a kid is, especially it's more of a groupish thing, the more connected a generation or group is, the lonelier they're going to be if they're connected through addiction-based, algorithm-driven platforms. So I don't buy it for a moment that it actually makes them more connected. It gives them very low-quality connections. Imagine having low-quality connections to 1,000 people versus high-quality connections to 3 people. Which kid is healthier? So I don't believe that. It helps them find information. Really? Google couldn't do that? You have to have an algorithm-driven, addiction-designed thing to give you content? What's another one that they say? Those are some of the main ones. So, if we're talking about 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds, we adults, we can use these platforms for our purposes. I'm on Twitter because it's useful to me. I can network on Twitter. When my son was 12, he had no need to network. He had no need to talk to strangers. He had no need to communicate with his friends through an algorithm-driven platform. Let him call them up and talk on the phone and get together. So I really don't buy it. The bar, I have to go through so much to prove the harms. And people can say, oh, well, you can't prove it. Oh, it's correlation, it's not causation. So I'm going through so much to prove the harms. But on the benefit side, people just say, oh, well, it makes them more creative. Oh, it makes them more connected. Like, no, it doesn't. Show me the evidence that Gen Z is more creative.
Not surprisingly, Professor Haidt, you see this as more than a book. You see your work as part of a movement that's very, very important. When you see states starting to make changes, or yesterday a big article in the Washington Post outlining some of these regulations that are changing, do you feel like your message is getting traction?
Oh my goodness, yes. It's been so wonderful to see that the world was ready for change. I just happen to be very lucky in my timing. The world was ready for change. All over the developed world, family life has become a fight over screen time. Everyone hates it. Everyone could see something was wrong. We could all see an 11-year-old kid, a girl will go off to her bedroom and not come out for hours. You don't know what she was doing there. You don't know who she was talking to. Something's wrong. Everybody could see this. And what's especially exciting is in red states, they could see this and their governors are acting. In blue states, they could see this and their governors are acting. In Congress, they can see this and there's bipartisan support for KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Act, and the new versions of it. So I'm actually absolutely thrilled at what's happening because it's not just here. Same thing's happening in the UK, Australia. There's movement in a lot of other European countries, and Brazil. So this is a global rebellion against these 3 or 4 companies that have somehow taken our children's attention and childhood, and they won't give it back. And so we have to have age gating. We have to work together. If we act collectively, I think this is the key to the success of my book was I didn't just, as you can see, I'm pretty gloomy about what's happened, but it wasn't just a gloom and doom book, because part 4 of the book, the last part, is no matter what's happened so far, we actually can fix it. We can get out. It doesn't cost any money. We just have to do 4 norms. With 4 norms, we can escape because we have to do it collectively. The reason that everybody gives their 10 or 11-year-old a smartphone is because everybody else gave them a smartphone. We don't want our kid to be left out. So with 4 norms, we can roll this back. Norm number 1, no smartphone before high school. Norm number 2, no social media before 16. Norm number 3, phone-free schools. And that's happening very rapidly across the country and around the world. And number 4, far more independence, free play, and responsibility in the real world. And that's really crucial because if we're going to take the phones away, a delay, so that 10-year-olds aren't spending 10 hours a day on their phone, what are they going to do? We have to give them back a real childhood in the real world. Oh, and here's another area where AMA and AAP could be so helpful to make very clear statements on the importance of play, outdoor play, risky play. I'm not sure if you can say that, but risk is actually an essential feature of childhood play. Kids need risk. They seek it out. Once they master a skill, they make it a little harder. They climb a little higher. They try juggling 4 things. I mean, they need challenge and risk. And so anything that doctors can do to make it clear to parents, like, if you want your kid to be healthy, you have to gradually let go. You have to give them more independence, let them have more free play.
Well, I loved your story about why trees didn't work in the biosphere, because they didn't have wind and made it hard to grow strong root systems. And what a great parable. Professor Haidt, thank you so much for joining us today. This work is just so critical, and physicians really do have a powerful role to play here. I encourage everyone out there to pick up a copy of The Anxious Generation online or in bookstores nationwide, and check out the episode description for more information. If you found this discussion valuable, you can support more programming like it by becoming an AMA member at ama-assn.org/join. That wraps up today's episode, and we'll be back soon with another AMA update. Be sure to subscribe for new episodes and find all our videos and podcasts at ama-assn.org/podcasts. Thanks for joining us today. Please take care.
I just want to add a few thoughts from my perspective about what Jonathan was sharing. And so I'm old enough now that I don't remember things, so I'm going to tell you the 3 topics, and then I'll roll through them. The first, I want to talk about pain, and then I want to talk about addiction, and then I want to talk about design, pain, addiction, and design, and I'll do it really quickly. Pain. God has given us, within our design as people, He's given us the capacity to feel pain. It's an important capacity that we have. If I put my hand on a hot stove, even without thinking about it, even without knowing it's a hot stove, my body and my brain work together to tell me this is something painful and I shouldn't be here. So one primary purpose of pain is to tell us that we need to do something differently or we're going to harm ourselves. Right? Clear enough? Addiction is trying to avoid pain. It doesn't understand or honor the value of pain. So in my field, we work with a lot of people who experience sexual addictions, pornography addictions, for example. And there's a pretty common addiction cycle model that we use, and it applies to a lot of different kinds of addictions. And I think you'll understand the corollaries, and I'll connect some dots between pornography addiction or addiction in general and what he's been talking about with social media. Usually at the top of the cycle is we call it a trigger, and a trigger is just any type of pain. It can be an emotional pain, it can be a physical pain, it can be a slight pain, it can be a big pain. The person who's addicted doesn't know what to do with the pain. They don't know how to regulate it, they don't know how to get rid of it. Obviously, this is an easy example. Put my hand on a stove, I know to put my hand away. My body just tells me that. But there's some pains that are more complex, like what happens when I have a chronic illness that hurts? How do I deal with that? Or what happens when my heart is broken or I'm lonely? Those are a little bit more complicated kinds of pain to deal with. What happens when I have an argument with the person I love most in the world? It's a different kind of pain. But nonetheless, the pain is telling me that I need to do something so that there's not further harm done. Addiction takes that pain, and instead of dealing with it in a productive way, it tries to medicate it, tries to make it go away, so I don't feel it anymore. So the second stage of the cycle is what's called a hunt. I'm looking for something to medicate the pain. And so if it's alcohol, it's alcohol. If it's drugs, it's drugs. If it's porn, it's porn. You can hear how social media could be one of those places to medicate pain. The problem with the medication, though, is that it doesn't resolve the pain. It just numbs us to the pain, at least to some degree. The third phase of the cycle down here around 6 o'clock on the clock is the acting out. So whatever the drug of choice is, you've got it, you're taking it. The difference for behavioral addictions, like he mentioned, gambling or pornography, instead of bringing the chemical from the outside and injecting it into your body, it's manipulating or co-opting the chemicals that God has given to your body. It's using those to numb the pain. So things like adrenaline or dopamine or oxytocin or serotonin, it's hijacking those chemicals to try to resolve the pain that you're experiencing up here. And we see this all the time in porn addiction. The last phase of the cycle is honestly called the despair stage. It's the crash after the chemical wears off. It's not a return to equilibrium. It's lower than where you were before. On a physiological level, it's lower. But also even think on an emotional level. If you and it's easy to identify, like if you're an alcoholic and you've done this a million times, and you just binged and you drank again, and you told your spouse that you'd stop, and you promised yourself you'd stop, and you've been praying that you could stop, and you just did it again, and you're waking up with a terrible hangover, it's not just the physical pain you experience. Now you also feel shame about it. You feel regret. You might feel a sense of self-loathing. All of those things hurt. And what does the addicted person do with what hurts? They medicate it. So they're right back into the cycle over and over again. You see the problem? Social media just plays right into this on multiple levels. So an easy example, and he mentioned this a little bit, if I'm at school and I leave for the weekend and I go home and I heard some of my friends talking about a party this weekend that I wasn't invited to. And it's Saturday morning and I'm there with myself and no one's invited me over, and I reached out to somebody and they haven't gotten back to me yet, and I'm feeling lonely. That's a pain. And I don't know what to do with that pain. Then I'm going to go search on something. And the easy go-to is this little device here, because I know that if I go here, I'll distract myself. And so I pull up TikTok or Instagram or Facebook Reels or YouTube Reels, and I start watching, and I feel better, kind of, for a little bit. I feel the pain is not quite as edgy. It's not hurting quite as much for that time. But then what happens? Now, I've done that for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. When that's over and I come to my senses, or my mom comes home, or I fell asleep and I woke up the next morning, how do I feel about those 6 hours? I don't feel good. I would have rather been at the party. I would have rather been down the street with a friend. I would have rather done something productive. I would have rather got my homework done. And I'm aware of all those things, and that hurts. Now, if you're paying attention, you'll notice this too, that within the cycle, there are already spots where the pain is increasing. Even though I'm medicating the pain is increasing. So the person addicted to alcohol or pornography, he or she has done this 1,000 times, 10,000 times. They know where this leads. So when I'm already moving towards my drug of choice, whatever it is, even at that point, something inside me, because we're smart, our souls are smart. You can trick our physiology for a little bit, but our souls are smart. Something inside of me is saying, I know where this leads, and yet I'm doing it again, and I don't know what to do differently. And that hurts. It hurts to feel powerless. It hurts to feel like I'm scrolling. And you know what? I'm already kind of bored, but I'm still scrolling. And so if we're on social media and we already recognize this is not where I want to be, and I've done this a million times, then we're feeling a bit more, what? Pain. And notice this too on social media. My kids do this. They have influencers they like. Or if they don't know they do, the algorithms will kick in, the people that they're stopping to watch. What happens when you have a social media influencer that you go to on a regular basis? So I feel lonely. I say, you know what, I'm going to go online. I get on Instagram, and I start watching my favorite influencer, and I'm watching her present her stuff. A couple things happen, because again, the soul is smart. One, our child notices this person seems happy. I don't feel happy. This person has 10,000 or 2 million or 10 million followers. 10 million people who want to be with her or with him. And I'm here alone. And I love this person. And they don't know I exist. Our souls are smart. We cannot outrun our souls. Praise God, we can't. And so even right within the cycle, even as we're in the midst of the crazy, we just keep going. We keep going. We keep going. And then when it's over, we go back, and we go back, and we go back. Okay, so one is pain. That's what I've just described to you is the cycle of trying to avoid pain. But here's the deal. We are designed, and I said this at the beginning, we're designed to respond to pain in healthy and holy ways. That's why God has given us the ability to feel pain, to pull our hand from the oven or from the stove. What happens when I feel lonely? That's a pain. What's a holy response to pain? What's a healthy response to pain? Let me find somebody and connect with them. Let me meet face to face with somebody in person so I can see their face. Did you know the refresh rate on our screens is slower than our brain's capacity to take in information? That means the small cues, the small emotional cues or facial cues that we get in connection with people live is faster than online. We can never connect with somebody as sufficiently, even on FaceTime, on our screens. It can't be done. God has wired us with incredible capacity in this regard. When we are lonely, that's telling us, I need community. I need friendship. I need love. I need to attune to somebody, and have somebody attune to me. That's our design. Let me talk about the design of this for a minute. He talked about this. Our devices are designed, and these big companies have designed our devices and the algorithms that go with us to get our attention and to hold it as long as it can. That is their design. That's what they're designed to do. So when I go online and I'm spending time on social media because I'm trying to avoid some type of pain, whether it's a big pain or a small pain, it might just be that I've got homework tonight, I don't want to do it, whatever the size pain. When I go on here, this is doing what it's designed to do, and I'm not doing what I'm designed to do. Does that make sense? And this is designed for me not to do what I am designed to do. This device is designed to keep me from doing what I am designed to do in response to the pain and discomfort of life. Does that make sense? Okay. The great news about it is that our arbitrary. It's given to. Can you hear me? It's cutting out. It's just my night. It's my night for the mic switch because the concert's been so long and I've been shouting. Our design is given to us by a God who cares deeply about us. So parents, one of our jobs, and I want to just let you know, I've botched this all over the place. And part of the reason I've botched it is because of my own struggles with this device. I can maybe share a story later if there's time. But our job as parents, one of our number one jobs as parents right now, is to help our kids to recognize the pain and discomfort they experience and what to do with it. Because Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. He did not say, in this world you will have trouble until the 21st century, and then you can just get online. He said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Pain can be redemptive. Pain is one of the only ways that we're going to grow virtue. Pain is one of the only ways that we're going to grow stronger. He talked about the importance of risk. Why don't we let our kids risk? Because it's scary. What is fear? It's a kind of pain. But it's meant to help us to grow, to trust God more, and to trust our kids more as they grow. So as we're not doing this alone, we are walking back into our design. It might feel for a while as we change behaviors in our family, or as we divert our kids from what everybody else is doing. It might feel for a while that we are working against the grain. We are, but we are not working against design. We might be working against the neurochemicals that have become acclimated to flowing this way, but we're not working against our design. Pain is special. It's very important to development, and it's important to us as adults. Okay, one final story. I'm out with a friend of mine 2 summers ago. We're eating outside at a restaurant I like, and he starts talking to me. He said, Josh, you're in Christian ministry, and you know that the enemy is moving about. He's prowling about like a roaring lion right now, seeking someone to devour. You know he's after you. So if he were going to bring you down, if he were going to take you out, how would he do it? And as he said it, he kept talking. He talked for probably another 5 minutes. I don't remember anything else he said. Because what happened when he said that, I knew immediately that I had become addicted to my phone. Because for the previous 2 years, multiple times, I'd picked up my device to look at the weather. And then 15 minutes later, I'd put it down. And I was like, wait, I didn't even check the weather. Or multiple times, and this is the one I'm most embarrassed about, multiple times, my wife would be talking to me. And then somewhere in the middle of the conversation, she said, Josh, you just picked up your phone. Are you listening to me? I was like, I was listening. I just wanted to, there was no good excuse. Multiple times, my kids would walk through the room. I was in seminary at the time. So I was studying some, but I'd also get distracted. My kids would walk through the room, good night, Dad, and I didn't remember they'd walk through. So I'm at this outdoor restaurant. My friend says, Josh, the enemy's going to take you out. How's he going to do it? And immediately, the first thing I thought of was my device. He's already doing it. I am so distracted. I can't focus as much as I used to. So he's talking. I pick up my phone off the table. I drop it on the ground in the cement next to us, and I stomp on it until it is broken beyond repair. And my friend pushes himself back on the table and says, what are you doing? And I said, in the Old Testament, when the city had elevated an idol, God's command, tear down the idol, smash it until it's just dust. I needed to do something different. I had been promising my wife, myself, my kids for a long time I was going to stop, and I haven't. I need to do something drastic. This is an iPhone 7. I don't know what generation of iPhones we're on now. It's got a big crack all the way through it. It's dumbed down. I have no internet access onto it, and the world is not designed for me to live with phones like this. I'm stuck on the side of the road. I'm trying to get in touch with a tow truck through my company, and it says, yeah, just press this button, and we'll log you into on our website. And I'm like, I can't. It took me an extra 15 minutes just to get a person. Small potatoes. My life is better. my life is better with this. And I think my kids and my wife experience the difference too. We live in an age that doesn't believe in gods like the ancient Near East believed in gods. But that doesn't mean the gods who Paul writes in the New Testament, St. Paul writes in the New Testament, that they weren't really gods. They were demons parading as gods. Just because we don't believe in them does not mean they're not moving around. And honestly, they do not care if we call them God or the newest iPhone or TikTok or whatever. All they want is our devotion. So I'll close with this. I can't help but to notice some of the ways that we posture our bodies in devotional ways towards our devices. Let me show you one. See if this looks like a devotional pose. Go to any airport, any place you have to wait in line, and tell me if you don't see people like that. Tell me if you yourself haven't done that pose. I am bowing, my hands are in front of me in a humble posture, and my entire attention is devoted. This is an important battle for our kids, for our parents. It is a battle. It's a spiritual battle, and I don't think it's just a neutral kind of technological battle. I think the enemy is after our minds and our devotion. Pass this on.
Thank you, Josh. Jennifer.
Okay, I have a ton of swirling things in my head. One of the things, Josh, that I loved that you said was when you just talked about the addictive cycle. And I think in my work, part of what I do is I really look at the cycles of emotion, the cycles of relationship, and how those are playing out in healthy ways or unhealthy ways. And one of the things in this video that I just think is critical to remember, he talked about the impact of phones in the early puberty time. I am not a neuroscientist, but I really do think about the brain a lot. And so the cycle of addiction captures our brain, but our brains are wired for relationship. Our design is to be in relationship. The relationships that we have with other people are meant to do something for our bodies. And so when we hit adolescence, there's a whole, they talk about brain development, but I just want to share with you a little bit of what that is, right? So in my work, I think about kind of three main areas of the brain. I think about the prefrontal cortex, and that's the part of our brain that actually matures last. In mid to late 20s, this is the part of our brain that helps with decision making and clear kind of thinking organization. Kind of the lower part of our brain, the amygdala, that's the part of our brain that fires when we're in pain, when we're in danger, and it's designed to do that. In the middle is the limbic system, and that's the part of our brain that's wired for relationships, for emotion, and those two parts of the brain kind of mediate through the limbic system to regulate all of those things. Well, children are built with large amygdalas, smaller limbic systems, and smaller prefrontal cortexes, right? So as we mature and our brain is maturing through play, which is incredible, right? Because we are tangible beings, so we need things to teach us. That's why I love being Catholic, because our faith is tangible, right? So we need the tangible things of the world to form us and shape us. And so what happens when we begin interrupting that brain development, as we grow and mature, our amygdala shrinks, our prefrontal cortex grows, and all of those systems in the brain begin wiring in a way that will help us become mature adults. Right, so there's a saying in mental health that says, what fires together wires together, right? So the phone will fire superficially all of these areas of our brain and begin to tighten them, and that's why it becomes an addiction, because it's a tight system. When we're physical and in the world, what we're doing is we're developing all the parts of our brain, and so we naturally will grow into our prefrontal cortex, helping us make good decisions. Our amygdala will respond when it's supposed to danger. It's a beautiful survival mechanism that God has given us. And the phones interrupt that development, right? And the biggest piece of that is not just what it's doing to the brain in its wiring, but I think the thing that struck me most about what he said, and it's the heart of a lot of my work, is the social deprivation, right? And so I really do think about the power of relationships. We're wired that way. There's neurons in our brain called mirror neurons. And the mirror neurons are designed to take in information from the other. So an infant is designed, how far can an infant see? This close, right? Eye to eye contact, where this infant is growing, right? So as, again, in therapy, we'll call it a stronger, wiser other, right? As adults, we are supposed to be stronger, wiser others for our children. And so our mirror neurons, our eye contact, which is what you were saying with the cell phones, our eye contact is so, so powerful. It's how we lend our system physiologically to another person, right? So when we're chatting with our child, we want to look them in the eye. We want to be in close proximity. You don't get that on a phone. You don't get the proximity. But here's the thing. Our goal as parents is to form. I loved that you used that word in the prayer. It's formation. Children learn how to be human beings by being formed in their families, right? What does our catechism teach us? It teaches us that the family is a school of love, right? So there's a whole bunch of teaching around that, but what are we doing in our families with our children? We are teaching them how to grow into relationship with others, right? So when they get to late childhood, early adolescence, we hopefully have shown them what authentic relationships look like. They should know what it means to be valued, to be respected, to be considered, right? They should have experienced that in the context of our family. So when they get on these social media devices, hopefully they're a little bit wired to notice that it's absent, right? Now, it doesn't happen like that all of the time. The devices are designed to create addiction, to interrupt the systems, all of that, and that is true even when we're adults, right? So I always say, like, the first place we have to check is with us. You know, do I notice when my kid walks by? Am I engaged in conversation over dinner? Do I have a moment to spare to say, hey, it looks like you're struggling with that party invitation that you didn't get, right? It's being present to our children and teaching them what relationship looks like. And so when the pain comes, it's our job as parents to help them learn how to move through that, right? That's our job. And part of this overprotection is two things, generally, from what I see. The first is, of course, you don't want your kid to be in pain. Of course you don't. Parents do not want their children to suffer, of course. It's heartbreaking when our children suffer. But what do we often do? We prevent them from suffering. So we overprotect, we over-involve, we kind of get in there and do things for them. And what they really need from us is to say, I know that's hard, and I'm with you in it, and we're going to get through it together, right? That's accompaniment, right? We help our children navigate. When we overprotect, we prevent them. And what does overprotection do? It says to them internally, I don't know if I can do it myself. I don't know. Can I make that decision? Can I make that choice? I don't know. I don't know how to be independent, right? I don't know what it means to be settled within myself. The other thing that happens, though, sometimes for parents is that they just abandon, hoping that, oh, he'll figure it out, right? Now, you can do that, and then they're not present at all. The power of relationship is really critical. And the way that that gets played out can make our children more vulnerable to the things that social media promises: belonging, acceptance, validation, beauty, popularity, all of the things that we long for as human beings, to be seen, to be known, to be loved. Social media promises as an artificial, right? And what we want for them is to learn it in the real world. And that has to be us and the communities that we involve them in to help teach that. So I don't know how much time I have, but that's sort of where I am at this moment.
Thank you, Jennifer. I was taking all kind of good notes on my phone about phones. This was great. So I just had a little thought, and then we opened up the question and answers. I think a big point, though, is to use this. Someone said, it's not a phone. How often do teenagers call people? They never call people. It's not a phone. It's a computer that you hold in your pocket. That's just an important to remember. It's just a power computer. Just call it what it is. It takes this well. Most people use this well. It takes discipline. You have to have a plan. You have to. We just fading in and out. So we just canonized a young boy, Carlo Acutis, because he had discipline in using the internet. He said, I would use it 1 hour a day, because if I don't make a rule, I might use it 5 hours. And so we canonized him. You have to have rules, and you need to make rules for your children, but you also need rules for yourself. So it takes great intentionality and self-discipline and rules for anybody to use this well. It just does. We use it too much. We spend too much money with shopping on our phones. We look at things we shouldn't look at. We are agitated by the news cycle. This is an adult problem as well as a child problem. Adults can kind of get through it, but children, it deforms their thinking because their brain is maturing. So it's just so important. Don't have your phone in your bedroom. Good rule. No phones in the bedroom. Don't have the phone at the dinner table. Good rule. You have rules. There are child protection controls you can put on your phone. Child protection. They're just as good for adults. So my phone is locked down, and Father Daniel has my passcode. So I can't change the settings. It disciplines me in my use of my phone. Like Josh, I cannot access the internet on my phone. I have great apps. I have GPS. I have weather. I have Pandora Music. I have my breviary, my prayer book. I write my homilies on my notepad. I text, I call, I email, but I can't browse. You send me a link, I can't open it. I have to go to my office, to my desktop. But you just create a system for yourself so that you're using your phone and it's not using you. Who owns who? So just that's so important. With the first year in seminary now, your very first year, they take away your phone. These are adult men. You're not allowed to use your phone because you need to break the habit. This isn't just a struggle for children. Josh helps people grow in chastity. Pornography is an addiction. So many young boys are addicted. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. 13-year-old. It's destroying my life, and I don't know how to stop. I hear it in confession all the time. So it's very powerful for good or for bad. It takes great discipline and self-denial and rules. So don't hesitate to make rules for yourself, for your children. Spread the word. So we're going to open it up to question and answers, just open conversation. To have a question, please stand and say it loudly so everyone can hear.
I can, oh,
If you're directly sort of working with them to exit like the phone addiction life, but can you share, and maybe you can as well, sort of like a success story to inspire us a little bit about, either a young person or an adult who, was using it as a crutch or whatever, and, some concrete things that they did and successes that you've seen in that sort of positive transformation. Some
Josh,
examples.
I'll let you share a specific story, but just by way of hope, there's the term is neuroplasticity, and he talked about that a little bit, and I think it, our bodies are designed to be able to grow and to change. And so often what happens is we tend to think, oh man, that's it, done, ruined, over, fixed. And our brains can be rewired, right? So there is always hope for change and for neuroplasticity and for bringing those areas of the brain back online and growing them. So, there's always a possibility for change. So the hope in that is wherever you are, in your relationships, in your phone use, in your spending habits, wherever you are, and that's the goal of our life, is to continue to grow and to change. So it's not hopeless, but it can be hard. So I don't know if you want to.
Well, I can share a little bit. I volunteer with a youth group that went to Tijuana, Mexico this last summer to build houses. And one of the rules on the trip was you couldn't have your phone. So the kids signed up to not have a phone. And there are probably 50 kids on this trip. Everybody that I talked to about what it was like to live without their phone for the week, every single one of these teens, this is 9th graders through seniors in high school, were so grateful not to have their phones. So all the talk about FOMO, fear of missing out, or all the reasons that we give on a daily basis, they were all like, it's great not to my phone. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I'm spending the whole week with these people. We're playing together. We're throwing Frisbees around. We're playing games. We're working hard. We're serving people. They were all really excited about it. I share that as a piece of encouragement that, again, it fits with our design. The thing that I did notice, though, and this maybe is not quite what you're looking for, but in all the kids, in what they described, none of them on their own proposed the idea that there was any way to carry that on when they went home. The assumption was, of course I won't be able to do this when I get home, because we all have our devices at home. And so I think this is a great opportunity for parents. Minor success story. In our book, I co-authored a book with Daniel Weiss called Treading Boldly Through a Pornographic World, a Field Guide for Parents. So if you're interested in that angle of things, there are copies out there for sale, and we'd love for you to pick one up.
We also have, I think, a chapter of that book copied as well.
That's right, yeah.
Recommend the whole book, but we have a chapter which is geared to helping your children.
Yeah, there are some rules and some guidelines in that chapter that we recommend about how do you shepherd kids, and kind of, from beginning to end. One of the things that I wrote in the book, Daniel and I dealt with our kids differently. My view was, hey, when our kids are in middle school, we're going to get them their first device. It'll be internet only. They won't be able to have digital access outside the phone or outside the home. And then we'll kind of progressively add stuff as they get older. And Daniel was like, not me. I want to keep my kids analog as long as possible. They can have a phone sometime in high school. We haven't nailed that down. And we included both those perspectives in the book. I will tell you, though, if we were writing the book today, I would prescribe Daniel was right. Our kids they're okay, but I wish they had not had as much access to the internet as they had. I will say, though, that one of the things that my wife and I have worked really, really hard at is open conversation with our kids, where we want them to own this. And so one of the things that we do, and we recommend this in the book, is that especially as your kids get older, as much as rules are valuable, once our kids leave our home, our discipline stops being our discipline unless they've learned it as self-discipline. And so part of our shepherding our kids, we'll say, what should our family rules be? What makes sense? Why would we even limit our phone usage, that kind of thing? And with our two oldest kids, I've been really, really proud of them. My oldest just she seemed to kind of skate through. She does not seem to struggle with overuse of her phone. My second and third kids, my two daughters, both did. They both found themselves just doom scrolling. It did impact their mental health. And they both watched it happen. And I watched them make decisions in and out, like, I'm giving up Instagram. good for you. It's deleted off my phone. Great, great. And then 3 weeks later, like, how's that going? Like, I reinstalled it, you know. But my second, at least, she's permanently deleted it. She hasn't gone back. And because she's noticed through that kind of give and take, this is not working for me. And so she's away at college now. She still doesn't have Instagram. And I think she's happier for it. She's actually the one, I'm talking too much here, but she goes to a small college, and she came back to us after the first semester, and she said, you know what, I think most people would be happier if they lived in a small, walkable community. I'm outside every day. I'm walking by the same faces I see every day. I don't even know all their names, but I'm saying hello to them. I'm getting sunshine every day. I'm enjoying beauty. And I was like, yeah, so she's paying attention to some of her cues for what's working. Were you asking because you had a sensitive question? You're like, I'm not going to ask it if it's taped.
Yes.
That's a great question, and it's a hard one, right? Because what I would, again, in my therapeutic mindset, like what would happen is you're talking with your kids about the thing, which is the phone, right? But perhaps, and again, I can't, it's hard because everybody is unique and complex, right? But in general, what kids don't always feel is parental good intent, right? So, and then what parents struggle to communicate is because I love you and because this will be good for you. So your comment about let's talk about this, why is that good? You're still gonna make the decision because you're the parent, but there's a sense of dual kind of ownership in that. And so what often happens then are these struggles end up being about the thing, and what's getting missed is, again, the relationship, right? And so Father Mark Mary Ames did a talk or a podcast at one point, and he used the phrase, and I'm not sure if he was quoting somebody else, he said, rules without relationship equals rebellion. Rules without relationship equals rebellion. So rules are very, very important, but if they don't have a meaning, or they're not perceived as having a meaning, because I think that's the thing, right? If our kids don't perceive why, and we don't hear why, then what we're doing is we're missing the connection, right? So when we take away a phone, what are they missing out on? What we need to hear from them. It's a perceived connection, or it's I don't belong, or other people will get ahead. Like underneath of that protest is usually a fear of rejection or abandonment, or a desire for something good that they think this thing will fill. And so that's part of the conversation is, can I hear what it is that you really want? Can I hear what you're afraid of? And then let's figure out how we can solve that together. And that's the conversation that's harder to get to when we're fighting about the phone or coming in on time or whatever. So I don't know if that helps, but it's just a general sort of sense in the way I think about things.
If I could add something, I find that so helpful. And so in our ministry, as we're walking with adults who are trying to break free from things like pornography, one of the strange things, or it's strange to people when they first come in, is when they talk about the things that they're doing, some of the questions that our team initially asks are things like, what are you looking for? And they say, well, that's inappropriate to talk about. No, I don't mean that. But what are you looking for? What was happening before you went online? And we're trying to get after the same stuff that they don't realize that they're going to their devices for, to porn or social media for. One other thing I would add, and let me just, I want to be careful, because when I was first asked to be a part of this panel, I said no. I said I struggle with this stuff like other people, and I don't feel like I've been the parent I want to be in this area. And one of the members of my board said, Josh, you wrote a book. And I was like, okay, all right, so I'll go. So I don't want to in any way suggest that our family has skated through. I've got kids who are not walking with the Lord. I've got things that ways I've parented I wish I hadn't, things I would do differently. It's one of the great advantages of having a big family. You just try again when they get older. But I do have one story I'd love to share, and this is actually in the book as well. We were wrestling over phone usage, contracts, digital media. My kids were getting tired of me saying, "What are you doing on your phone? What are you looking at? Get off your phone?" And one day, and it was just a moment of inspiration. Somebody in the family, it was either my wife or me, and I'll give my wife credit. She probably asked, "Kids, what kind of family do we want to be? What kind of people do we want to be?" She was asking them a vision question. Like, where do you want to be? What do we want to be? And suddenly my kids are talking over each other. They're like, oh, we want to be loving. We want to be sacrificial. We want to have open arms. We want people coming over to our house. Like, they were so excited about like the vision stuff. And I think it's because they're designed for good, because they're designed by a God who is good. And so we kind of backtracked from the phone thing and said, okay, how can we get there to this life, this beautiful life that you're after? And then we could introduce the phone as a part of that larger vision, as opposed to this big behemoth all of its own. So it didn't solve everything for us, but it was a lesson for me to kind of keep my eyes on the big and the pointing to it, just instead of just pointing away from. So for whatever that's worth, however you can integrate that, I hope it's helpful.
There's different aspects, right, to social media, internet browsing in general, phones. But when we get to the basic, what are we desiring, right? Ultimately, we're desiring relationships, right, with God and with others. That's what we're built for, love God and love others. We were saying at dinner, one of your children or someone you know went to help homeless people in New York City and said, this is amazing. I want to dedicate myself to this. Now, who thinks caring for homeless people in a city is amazing? But when you do it, it's satisfying. You're helping. It's a purpose. Your life is in perspective. I have so much more than these people. So when you're seeking pleasure or escape on the phone, ultimately you're seeking relationship. G.K. Chesterton, I think, said if a man goes to seek a prostitute, he's really looking for Jesus. He just doesn't know it. He wants friendship. He wants love. He wants affirmation. He wants comfort. But we are material beings, and we need food, and we need drink, and we need sleep, and we need entertainment. But it's so easy to take them out of perspective and misuse them, right? All these pleasures aren't bad, but it's so difficult to use them in moderation. And the phone tempts us not to use them in moderation. It's built for us to be immoderate. It wants us to stay on when you should get off. So the desires, we're trying to help people understand their desires and what it's leading them to, and to realize that this is not satisfying the desire. So much that could be said. There's so many different aspects, but we are at an hour and a half. So we're grateful that you came. Please mingle in the lobby afterwards. Talk to Jennifer and to Josh. Josh's book there, you might get a copy. But continue the conversation. And Jonathan's videos, Jonathan Haidt, good videos to reference. His books are good. The Anxious Generation. So some good resources to push out to friends or family members. We'll just close with a short prayer in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Lord God, thank you for this moment together, for the good insights you have given us. Help us to put them into action in our own lives and those of our families. Jesus, give us freedom from our compulsions and addictions through your grace and through wisdom of your Holy Spirit. And may Almighty God bless all of you here tonight, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless your families. Go in peace.